I remember the moment it all began. It was a Wednesday afternoon, the kind of day where the sky hangs heavy with thick clouds and everything feels just a little off. I was sitting in a stuffy conference room at work, staring blankly at a presentation about quarterly reports. My boss, Mr. Ivanov, was droning on and on about something that I had no interest in. But it wasn't just the meeting that had me uneasy. No, it was something more than that. It was the phone buzzing in my pocket. My wife, Katya, had been texting me all morning. Normally, this wouldn't be anything unusual. We had a good relationship, or so I thought. We'd been married for 7 years, lived in a nice apartment downtown, and things were comfortable. But these texts weren't like the usual, "How's your day?" or "What do you want for dinner?" kind of messages. They were short, cryptic, and unsettling. "We need to talk later." That was the first one. I read it and felt a slight chill down my spine. No one ever wants to hear those words. But I shrugged it off, assuming it was something minor. Then came the second message. "Are you sure you'll be home on time tonight?" Now that was odd. I was always home on time. What was she getting at? My fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to reply, but something held me back. Instead, I slipped my phone back into my pocket and tried to focus on the meeting. But my mind was racing. What was she going on about? The third message came through about an hour later, just as the meeting wrapped up. "I need you to be honest with me about something." Now I was officially worried. I spent the rest of the day in a strange fog, walking through my tasks mechanically. But my thoughts were on her. Katya wasn't the dramatic type. She was calm, collected, logical even. This kind of messaging wasn't her style at all. By the time I left the office, I was practically running to the car, desperate to get home and figure out what was going on. The drive home was quiet. Too quiet. Usually I'd put on some music, maybe even call her to chat, but not today. My mind was elsewhere. Every second felt like it was dragging, the weight of the unknown hanging over me. Finally, I pulled into the driveway. The lights in the apartment were off. Strange. She was always home by now. Maybe she was running late. Or perhaps she was just out with friends. But no, her car was parked right there. I hesitated for a moment before turning the key and stepping inside. The air felt different. Tense. I called her name, my voice echoing through the hallway, but there was no answer. Panic crept up my spine. That's when I saw it. A note on the kitchen table, written in her neat handwriting. "I'll be at my sister's tonight. I'm giving you one chance to come clean. Think carefully before you respond." My heart dropped into my stomach. What did she mean by that? Come clean about what? My mind raced through the possibilities, but none of them made sense. I wasn't hiding anything. Was I? And that's when the phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't from Katya. It was a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Natalia. I froze. How did she even have my number still? I thought I deleted everything, cut all ties. We hadn't talked in so long, and I had no intention of opening that door again. But there it was, a single message that suddenly made Katya's cryptic text make sense. "Miss me." My mouth went dry. My hands shook as I stared at the message, unsure of what to do. What was she playing at? Why now? And how did Katya know? I couldn't breathe. This was all coming at me too fast. Natalia? She was someone I had tried to forget. A mistake, a fling that shouldn't have happened. And now it seemed like everything was unraveling, right in front of me. Suddenly everything started to make sense. Katya's messages, the note on the table, the cold silence in the house. She knew. But how? I hadn't spoken to Natalia in months. It was just a stupid, one-time thing, and I thought I had buried it deep enough that it would never come back to haunt me. But now it was staring me in the face. My first instinct was to delete the message, to pretend it never existed, to tell Katya that she was imagining things. But deep down, I knew that wasn't going to work. She wasn't the type to just make baseless accusations. If she was asking me to come clean, she had something on me, something real. I sank into the chair by the kitchen table, staring at the note, the message, the phone in my hand. My mind raced, trying to piece together what had happened. What had gone wrong? How did Natalia come back into the picture? And what was Katya planning to do next? But most of all, I kept asking myself one question. How the hell was I going to get out of this? I sat there for what felt like hours, replaying everything in my head, trying to find a way to explain myself. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I was in way over my head. I had two choices. Either I could come clean, tell her everything, and hope that she forgave me, or I could lie. But lying wasn't going to be easy. Katya was sharp. She'd see through it in an instant if I wasn't careful. The phone buzzed again, another message from Natalia. This one was even worse. I know your little secret. You think you can just forget about what happened? Think again. We're not done yet. My blood ran cold. What was she talking about? What secret? We had one night together. That was it. There was nothing else, or so I thought. But now it seemed like she had something on me that I didn't even know about. I was trapped, caught between two women, two lies, and a secret that was starting to unravel in ways I couldn't control. I stood up, pacing around the room, my heart racing. I had to make a decision, and fast. Katya was waiting for an answer. Natalia wasn't going away. And me? I was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into the abyss, not sure whether I was going to fall or jump. Just as I thought things couldn't get worse, there was a knock at the door. The knock at the door echoed through the empty apartment, jolting me out of my spiraling thoughts. My pulse quickened. I wasn't expecting anyone. Katya was at her sister's, or so she said in her note, and I definitely wasn't prepared for visitors. Another knock, louder this time. I glanced at my phone, Natalia's message still glaring back at me. My mind was racing with questions. Who could it be? Was it Katya, back already, having decided to confront me in person? Or worse, was it Natalia? But no, that would be impossible. She lived in another city. She had no reason to show up at my door. Right? The knock came again, followed by a voice I didn't recognize. Hey, open up! It's important! I hesitated, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Everything in me screamed that I should ignore it. Whatever was happening outside that door was just another layer of the mess that was already unraveling my life. But then again, I couldn't just leave someone pounding on my door, could I? With a deep breath, I opened the door. Standing there was a man I had never seen before. Mid-30s, scruffy beard, and wearing a leather jacket that looked like it had seen better days. His eyes darted around nervously, like someone who didn't belong but was trying to act casual. He wasn't a delivery guy, nor did he look like a neighbor. He was a stranger, an unsettling one. I stared at him, unsure of what to say. You Alex? He asked, though it sounded more like a statement than a question. Yeah. Who are you? My voice came out harsher than I intended, probably a mix of confusion and irritation. I didn't have time for whatever this guy wanted. He ignored my question, stepping closer as if I'd invited him in. We need to talk. It's about your wife. Katya, right? I felt the blood drain from my face. How did this guy know Katya? And why was he here, at my door, talking about her? What the hell is this? I demanded, blocking the doorway, making it clear that he wasn't coming inside. The man raised his hands in a calming gesture, as if sensing my growing panic. Relax. I'm not here to cause trouble. But we do need to talk. Trust me, it's better if we do this in private. I don't think you want your neighbors hearing this. I didn't know what to think. My gut told me to shut the door in his face, but curiosity, or maybe it was fear, got the better of me. I stepped aside, letting him in. The moment he walked past me, I regretted it. There was something off about him, something I couldn't quite place. He strolled into the living room, glancing around like he was assessing the place. I stayed by the door, arms crossed, waiting for him to speak. Look, I'm just going to get straight to it, he said, turning to face me. You've got a problem, and if you don't handle it right, it's going to blow up in your face. You know what I'm talking about. I didn't, not really. But something about the way he said it, so sure, so knowing, made my heart race faster. I tried to play it cool. You need to start making sense, man. What problem are you talking about? I asked, my voice steady but my nerves on edge. The man smirked, like he knew he had me cornered. Natalia, he said, the name sliding off his tongue like a threat. Hearing her name from his mouth sent a jolt through me. What about her? I said, trying to keep my cool, but inside I was unraveling. She's not just some random fling, Alex. She's been keeping tabs on you. She's got more on you than you think, and trust me, if she decides to use it, your life's going to get a whole lot worse. I didn't know what to say. How could Natalia possibly have something on me? It was one night, a stupid, regrettable mistake. There was nothing to expose, nothing she could hold over my head. But this guy was acting like there was more to the story. "What does she want?" I finally asked, swallowing the growing lump in my throat. The man's smile widened. He seemed to enjoy the power he had over me in that moment. "Money, of course. Isn't that how it always goes? She's asking for a lot, too. She knows about your wife, your job, your life here. She's willing to keep quiet, but only if you pay up." I stared at him in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me. She wants money?" My voice cracked with disbelief and frustration. I was already starting to feel like I was losing control of the situation. The man shrugged, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. "People get greedy, especially when they've got something to hold over your head. She knows what happened between you two, and trust me, she's more than willing to use it." My mind was spinning. This couldn't be happening. Natalia and I had barely even kept in touch after what happened. I thought we had both moved on. How had things gone so wrong? "And you're what, her messenger?" I asked, trying to wrap my head around it. He smirked again, a look of smug satisfaction in his eyes. "Something like that. Let's just say I help her with her business. She needs someone to handle these kinds of things, and I'm good at it." I couldn't believe this. My life was falling apart in ways I hadn't even imagined, and now I had some thug in my living room telling me I was being blackmailed by a woman I barely even knew. "So what now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm supposed to just pay her off and hope she goes away?" The man shrugged again, as if the answer were obvious. "That's up to you, Alex, but I wouldn't wait too long. The more time you take, the more she's going to think about making things public. And trust me, you don't want that." I clenched my fists, feeling trapped. I didn't have the kind of money Natalia was probably asking for, and even if I did, I wasn't sure I could bring myself to pay her. But what choice did I have? If she went to Katya, or worse, my boss, everything I had worked for would go up in smoke. "How much?" I asked, my voice tight. The man grinned. "She's asking for 500,000 rubles. And trust me, she won't settle for less." My stomach twisted. 500,000 rubles? For what? To make a mistake go away? I didn't even have that kind of money. I had savings, sure, but nothing like that. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling like the walls were closing in around me. This was a nightmare, and I had no idea how to wake up from it. The man took a step toward the door, clearly sensing that his job was done. "I'll give you a few days to think it over. But don't take too long, Alex. Natalia's not the patient type." With that, he was gone, leaving me standing in the middle of the living room, staring after him, my mind racing. I was trapped, caught between two women and a lie that was spiraling out of control faster than I could keep up. I stood there for what felt like hours, the reality of the situation sinking in. I needed to fix this, and fast. But how? And what if Natalia wasn't bluffing? What if she really did have something that could ruin me? As I stared at the door where the man had just walked out, one thing became clear. There was no easy way out of this. And then, as if the universe was determined to keep me on edge, my phone buzzed again. It was Katya this time. "Have you decided what you're going to tell me?" I stood there staring at the message from Katya as though it were a bomb about to explode in my hands. "Have you decided what you're going to tell me?" Her words hit me like a truck. There was no way around it now. She knew something, and it was big. The walls of my carefully constructed life were closing in on me, and I had no idea how to escape. The silence in the apartment was suffocating. For a moment, I just stood frozen, listening to the ticking of the clock on the wall, each second feeling like a countdown to disaster. My mind spun with questions. Did Katya know about Natalia? Was she already onto the affair, or was she fishing for information? I looked at my phone again, the text from Katya still on the screen. I wanted to respond, but I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to come clean, to beg for her forgiveness and hope we could somehow salvage what we had. But the other part of me, the more cautious, self-preserving side, knew that telling the truth could blow everything apart. And then there was Natalia, lurking in the background like a dark cloud ready to burst. She wanted money, and from what that stranger had told me, she wasn't going to wait long before she started causing trouble. 500,000 rubles. I didn't have that kind of cash lying around. Even if I emptied my savings, it wouldn't be enough. But the thought of Natalia going to Katya with the full story, that was enough to make my blood run cold. I sat down heavily on the couch, trying to piece together a plan. There had to be a way out of this, something I hadn't thought of yet. But no matter how hard I tried to find a solution, every road led to disaster. Either I gave in to Natalia's demands and somehow found the money, or I risked everything by facing Katya without knowing how much she already knew. My phone buzzed again. I half expected it to be Katya, but when I checked, my heart sank. It was Natalia this time. "Tick-tock, Alex. I'm not a patient woman. You know what I want. And if I don't get it, well, let's just say your wife might start getting some very interesting messages." My stomach twisted. She was playing with me, enjoying every second of this torment. And the worst part? She had me exactly where she wanted me. There was no denying that. I felt trapped, completely and utterly trapped. But then as I sat there staring at the text from Natalia, an idea began to form in the back of my mind. It was risky, reckless even, but it was the only shot I had. I couldn't pay Natalia what she was asking for, but maybe, just maybe, I could turn the tables on her. The thought of doing something so bold made my pulse quicken, but I was desperate. I couldn't keep living under the weight of these lies, and I wasn't about to let Natalia hold my life hostage. If I was going to get out of this, I needed to take control of the situation. But first, I had to deal with Katya. I stood up, pacing the room as I thought through my options. I couldn't tell her the whole truth, at least not yet. I needed time to figure out my next move. But if I dodged her question, she'd know something was up. Katya was too sharp to let me off the hook that easily. I needed to give her just enough to keep her from digging deeper. With a deep breath, I finally typed out a response to her message. "We'll talk when you get home. There's something I need to explain." It was vague, but it was the best I could come up with on short notice. Hopefully, it would buy me enough time to put the rest of my plan into action. As soon as I sent the message, I started to feel a little more in control. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Now I just had to figure out how to deal with Natalia. I had one advantage. Natalia didn't know that I was onto her game. She thought she had the upper hand, but if I played this right, I could turn the tables. I just needed to find out what kind of leverage she really had on me. That meant digging into her life, figuring out who she was working with, and, if necessary, getting a little dirt on her in return. I knew a guy who could help me with this. Victor was a former colleague who'd left the corporate world to start a private investigation firm. He had always been good at digging up information, and if anyone could help me find out what Natalia was up to, it was him. I hadn't spoken to Victor in years, but I had no choice. I needed him now more than ever. Without wasting any more time, I grabbed my phone and dialed his number. The line rang twice before he picked up, his voice gruff but familiar. "Victor here. It's Alex. I need a favor." My voice was shaky, but I tried to keep it steady. There was a pause on the other end, followed by a low chuckle. Well, Alex, it's been a while. What kind of trouble are you in?" I swallowed hard. "The kind I can't talk about over the phone, but I need your help. Are you free tonight?" "I might be. What's going on?" "It's a long story, Victor. Can we meet?" "I'll explain everything in person." There was a brief silence, then Victor sighed. "All right. Meet me at that bar on Vasilyevsky Island. You know the one. I'll be there in an hour." I hung up, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. Victor was my best shot at figuring out what Natalia was planning, but meeting him meant diving even deeper into this mess. I wasn't sure if I was ready for what I might uncover, but I didn't have a choice. I couldn't let Natalia destroy everything I had worked for. I grabbed my coat and headed out the door. The drive to the bar was a blur, my mind racing with possibilities. I kept replaying the conversation with that stranger earlier, wondering how deep Natalia's scheme went. She had to be working with someone. There was no way she was pulling this off on her own. But who? And more importantly, why? The bar on Vasilyevsky Island was a small, dimly lit place tucked away from the main streets. It wasn't the kind of place you'd go for a casual drink. It was where people went when they didn't want to be found. I'd been there a few times before, back when Victor and I worked together. It was his kind of place, quiet, anonymous, and perfect for private conversations. I spotted Victor as soon as I walked in. He was sitting in a corner booth, nursing a glass of whiskey and flipping through the day's newspaper. He looked exactly the same as I remembered him, broad-shouldered, with graying hair, and a perpetual scowl etched into his face. I slid into the booth across from him And he looked up, his eyes narrowing slightly as he studied me. "You look like hell," he said bluntly. "I feel worse," I admitted, signaling the bartender for a drink. Victor leaned back in his seat, watching me with that same piercing gaze he always had. "So what's this about? You don't call me out of the blue unless it's serious." I took a deep breath, trying to figure out where to start. There was so much to explain, but I needed to keep it simple, at least for now. "It's a woman," I said finally. "Her name's Natalia. I had an affair with her a while back. I thought it was over, but now she's back and she's trying to blackmail me." Victor didn't seem surprised. He took a sip of his whiskey and raised an eyebrow. "How much is she asking for?" "500,000 rubles." My voice cracked as I said it. Victor let out a low whistle. "That's steep. What does she have on you?" I shook my head. "I don't know. I thought it was just a one-time thing. But she's threatening to go to my wife and my boss if I don't pay up. And there's this guy, a stranger showed up at my door earlier, saying he's working with her. He implied there's more to it than just the affair." Victor's eyes narrowed and he leaned forward slightly. "What do you mean, more to it?" "That's what I need you to find out," I said, desperation creeping into my voice. "I need to know what she has on me and how I can stop her." Victor was silent for a moment, considering my words. Then he nodded slowly. "All right, Alex, I'll look into it. But this isn't going to be easy. If she's got people working with her, it's going to take some time to dig up the dirt." I nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time in days. "I don't care how long it takes. I just need to know what I'm up against." Victor finished his drink and stood up. "I'll be in touch, but in the meantime, keep your head down. Don't do anything stupid." I watched him leave, my mind still racing with unanswered questions. This was just the beginning, and I had no idea how deep this rabbit hole went. But one thing was clear. If I wanted to get out of this mess, I was going to have to dig deeper than I ever had before. And I wasn't sure I was ready for what I might find. After Victor left, I sat alone in the dimly lit bar, staring at the glass in front of me, but barely aware of its contents. My mind was spinning, filled with thoughts of Natalia, Katya, and the stranger who had shown up at my door. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into the abyss, and no matter what I did, I couldn't pull myself back. I didn't go home right away. I needed time to think, time to process everything that had happened. But the more I thought about it, the more lost I felt. How had I let things get so out of control? How had a stupid, reckless mistake turned into something that could destroy my entire life? Eventually, I left the bar and drove around aimlessly, the city lights flashing by in a blur. My phone buzzed a few times, but I ignored it. I couldn't face Katya yet, not without knowing what I was going to say. And Natalia? Well, I wasn't ready to deal with her either. Not until Victor had some answers for me. When I finally made it back to the apartment, it was late, much later than I had planned. I half expected Katya to be waiting for me, sitting at the kitchen table with that knowing look in her eyes. But when I walked inside, the apartment was dark and silent. I let out a small breath of relief, though I knew it was only temporary. Tomorrow I'd have to face her. Tomorrow I'd have to start explaining. I tossed my coat onto the couch and headed to the bedroom, exhausted but too wired to sleep. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind drifted back to Natalia. What was her endgame? She was clearly after money, but there had to be more to it. She had to know I didn't have that kind of cash. So why now? Why this sudden demand after months of silence? I thought back to the stranger who had shown up at my door, his smug grin and cryptic warnings. There was something off about him, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. He didn't seem like the type of guy Natalia would work with. She was too smart for that, too careful. And yet there he was playing the role of her messenger, delivering threats like it was just another day on the job. Something wasn't adding up. The next morning, I woke up early, feeling more exhausted than before. My phone was buzzing on the nightstand, and when I glanced at the screen, my heart sank. It was Katya, a single text, but it said everything I was dreading. "We need to talk, now." There was no avoiding it anymore. I had to face her. I pulled myself out of bed and quickly got dressed, my mind already racing with what I was going to say. I still didn't have a solid plan, just fragments of half-truths and excuses that I hoped would buy me some time. But deep down, I knew this wasn't going to be easy. Katya wasn't the kind of woman you could fool for long. When I walked into the kitchen, she was sitting at the table, just as I had imagined. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. The tension in the air was thick, and I could feel her studying me, waiting for me to speak first. "Katya," I started, my voice sounding weak even to my own ears. "I know you're upset, but—" "Upset?" she interrupted, her voice cold and measured. "That's an understatement, Alex. I want to know what's going on. No more lies, no more half-truths. Just tell me." I stood there, feeling like I was standing in front of a firing squad. How much did she already know? I couldn't be sure. But if I didn't say something soon, she'd make up her own mind, and that could be even worse. "There's something I need to explain," I began, carefully choosing my words. "I've made some mistakes, big ones, but it's not what you think." She raised an eyebrow, clearly not convinced. "Oh, really? Then what is it, Alex? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been hiding something for a long time." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her gaze. I had to give her something that would satisfy her without completely destroying the fragile ground I was standing on. "There was someone," I admitted finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "It was a mistake. It happened a while ago, and I thought it was over. But now she's threatening me, blackmailing me." Katya's expression didn't change. If anything, she looked even more suspicious. "Go on," she said, her voice icy. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "Her name is Natalia. We had an affair, but it was just one time. It meant nothing, I swear. But now she's back, and she's trying to extort money from me. She's threatening to tell everyone if I don't pay her." For a moment, there was silence. I could see the wheels turning in Katya's mind as she processed what I had just told her. I waited, my heart pounding in my chest, hoping that she would believe me, at least enough to keep her from walking out the door. "How much?" she asked finally. The question caught me off guard. "What? How much is she asking for?" Katya repeated, her voice sharp. "500,000 rubles," I said, feeling a wave of shame wash over me as I spoke the words. Katya leaned back in her chair, folding her arms across her chest. Her expression was unreadable, and for a moment I couldn't tell if she was angry, hurt, or something else entirely. "And what exactly do you plan to do about it?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with tension. I hadn't expected this reaction. I thought she'd yell, scream, maybe even throw something at me. But this cold, controlled response, it was almost worse. "I don't know," I admitted. "I'm trying to figure it out. I don't have that kind of money, and even if I did, I don't want to give it to her. I've already asked someone to look into her, to see if there's something I can use against her. I'm trying to fix this, Katya, but I need time." She didn't respond right away. Instead, she stood up, walking over to the window and staring out at the street below. I watched her, feeling more helpless than ever. Finally, she turned back to me, her expression unreadable. "Alex, do you think I'm stupid?" she asked, her voice low but dangerous. I blinked, completely thrown off. "What? No, of course not. You've been lying to me for who knows how long, and now you expect me to believe that this is just about some affair? You expect me to believe that you're the victim here? That you're just an innocent man caught up in some blackmail scheme?" I opened my mouth to protest, but she didn't give me the chance. "I've seen the messages, Alex. I know more than you think. You think I didn't notice how distant you've been lately? How you've been acting strange for months? I'm not an idiot." My heart sank. She had seen the messages? How? I thought I had covered my tracks, deleted everything. Unless Natalia had already sent her something. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Natalia was playing a bigger game than I had realized. She hadn't just been threatening me. She had already made her move. "What did she send you?" I asked, my voice shaky. Katya's eyes flashed with anger. "Oh, now you care? Now you want to know what she told me? It's too late for that, Alex. You should have come clean months ago. You should have told me the truth before this all spiraled out of control." I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air but unable to surface. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I had thought I could fix this, that I could buy myself time to figure out a solution. But Natalia had already struck, and Katya wasn't going to wait around for me to explain myself. "Katya, please," I started, but she cut me off again. "No, Alex, I'm done. I'm done with the lies, the half-truths, the games. I'm not going to sit around and wait for you to clean up your mess. I deserve better than this." She grabbed her coat, her movements quick and decisive. I tried to stop her, reaching out to take her hand, but she pulled away, her eyes cold. "Don't follow me, Alex," she said quietly. "I need space. I need time to think. And you? You need to figure out what kind of man you really are." And just like that, she was gone. I stood there, staring at the door as it closed behind her, the sound echoing in the empty apartment. The weight of everything came crashing down on me. And for the first time, I realized just how badly I had screwed up. Katya was gone. My marriage was crumbling. And Natalia? She was still out there waiting for me to make my next move. But what was I supposed to do now? I was out of time, out of options, and I had no idea how to fix this.